Good people, what is going on? Another episode of the Uncle Podcast. I'm your host, Desmond. Thanks for tuning in. Wanted to do a quick video, and I'm actually out on a walk, but wanted to get the video rolling before I hit the hills and got all out of breath. But before I get started, please like and subscribe. It greatly helps the channel. It doesn't cost you anything, and it takes like 2 seconds. So I appreciate it. And you get notifications when I drop a video, which has been basically once a day, more than once a day lately. So yeah, please do. Want to talk about Paul Finebaum's comments on ESPN about Arch Manning. And essentially what he said is he is the best quarterback that we've seen. Did he say in generations? Or is it basically best quarterback we've seen in a really long time. And while it may end up being true, there is absolutely no way you can make that comment with any type of confidence or reality based in it. Because we've seen Arch Manning has thrown, 90? Or he's not even thrown 100 passes yet in his career. Not even 100 passes. It was most of those passes that he threw were in 3 games, most of them. I think like 60 of the 90 were in 3 games. They were against University of Louisiana Monroe, Mississippi State, and one other team I can't remember. I was looking at it, but nonetheless, most of his passes were, and UTSA is the other one, Texas El Paso, Texas San Antonio. So those are the 3 teams. In theory, you would say the best team, with it being an SEC team, would be Mississippi State. If I asked you how many games do you think Mississippi State won last year, what would be your guess? Because I was shocked to see they won 2 games last year. 2. No SEC games. One was, I think, Eastern EKU. I don't even think it was Eastern Kentucky because the logo looked different. But I mean, it was 2 games that they won last year. So they weren't a very good team. And Arch did have a really good game against them. He lit it up. But that's probably the equivalent of Bryce Underwood going to light up, Bowling Green or Toledo, and somebody telling you that he's the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. It's just not, you can't use that as an actual barometer of how good he's going to be. Now, like I said, Arch is huge. I think he's 6'4", 220, 230. I mean, he's a big dude, which that actually, I didn't realize how big he was. So he's a very big guy, athletic. He can run, which is definitely different than, the Manning quarterbacks we've seen lately with Eli and Peyton. Those guys did not run. But I believe his dad is Cooper, which Cooper was a wide receiver. So, kind of makes sense. But, he's got all the tools. But to just jump off a cliff and say he's the best we've seen, like, what are we talking about? I mean, even in his, with his last year at USC wasn't great, but you tell me he's better than Caleb Williams? You tell me he's better than Jaden Daniels of what we've seen with him? Jaden Daniels threw for, was it 4,000 yards and rushed for 1,000? Or threw for 3,000 and rushed for 1,000? I mean, come on. Like, it's just wild, and it's kind of the hype machine that we have grown to know when it comes to, number one, ESPN, but just media in general, where there is no middle ground anymore. It's either you're elite, you're the best quarterback we've ever seen, or you're a bust. You're awful. Like, there's no room for a guy to be just a really good SEC quarterback. And this is, off of Arch Manning, but it's just odd that we have to go and have such big swings like that, with athletes now. But yeah, I think that is wild and nuts. So, not wishing ill on Arch at all. I hope he wins a whole bunch, except when they play Alabama and, all that good stuff. So, But I just think those comments were nuts, to be as nice as I can. The other thing I wanted to talk about was I saw an article on ESPN, and it talked about basically the quarterbacks who had the highest like earnings in dollars, and I think it was active QBs. And you know, the list is irrelevant, but Kirk Cousins was on it, and also Matthew Stafford was on there as well. And in the article, it mentioned, you know, when Stafford came in, I believe he was in on the old CBA. So, you know, those quarterbacks were getting, you know, 50, 60, 70 million dollars as rookies, you know, on their rookie contracts. So it really made it difficult to build a team around them. And it also mentioned that, you know, the Lions had Calvin Johnson when they drafted Stafford, and then just a couple years later, I believe, had drafted Sue. And they mentioned in the article as well, and I wish I would have credited the gentleman for his work, but he just mentioned, what would that have looked like under the new CBA, where, you know, you had Calvin Johnson, I think it was 2 years before we got Stafford. So you would have had under Matt Stafford, let's say for Calvin, you know, you got the 4-year contract and the 5th-year deal. So you would have had Stafford for 3 years, cost controlled, with Calvin still being on his rookie deal. And then also in there, you would have had Ndamukong Suh as well. And just what that would have looked like for the Lions. Now, I don't think we had the leadership in the front office that would have been able to nail the rest of the roster to get us to a point where, hey, we're winning playoff games. We're competing for the division. Also, too, I mean, Aaron Rodgers was at the peak of his powers at that point. So it's not, you know, I'm not saying that the Lions were going to be winning Super Bowls or anything like that, but it is interesting to think what that could have looked like. To a bit of a different / lesser degree, it's kind of the recipe that the Chiefs have had recently, right? They've got Chris Jones, who would, you know, kind of be we would have Sue in that spot. Obviously the quarterback, Stafford to Mahomes, and then I guess pass catcher, you know, Calvin to Kelsey. And I just wonder what that would have looked like. You know, could you have built a better roster around those guys, assuming, once again, our front office wasn't a nightmare, which they kind of were. But just interesting. A friend of mine, Dre, shout out to you, had mentioned that he thinks for sure we would have won, you know, at least 1 or 2 playoff games within that stretch, just because of, you know, for all of his flaws, Matt Stafford was a super talented quarterback. Calvin Johnson was amazing. You know, we ended up being here for 10 years, 9 or 10 years, his career. So was terrific. And you just wonder what that could have looked like. But, you know, kind of is what it is with where things are today. But yeah. And also, too, with the kind of the way the Sue separation happened, Dre had mentioned, like, well, you know, maybe you don't beg him to stay, or, you know, because the Lions played the last year of his contract out. I think if you're in a better spot as a team, or not as desperate, because we were desperate, maybe before that season starts, you trade Sue for, I mean, bare minimum 2 2s. You probably could have got at least a 1. I don't think it'd have been nuts to get a 1 and a 2 for Ndamukong Suh at that point in his career. He was terrific. So, you know, maybe that helps you jumpstart, you know, things as far as his replacements and so on and so forth. But, yeah, I just thought that was an interesting thought exercise to wonder what could have been with the Lions. But that is it for me. Appreciate it. Peace.